Christy. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 21 of my 2020 holiday card series. Today I'm going to be making a card using Lawn Fawn's Den Sweet Den, A Creature Was Stirring, Berry Happy Holidays, and Critters in the Arctic. So I've stamped out my images on Neenah Solar White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'm going to be coloring with my Copic markers. And I'm starting with my polar bears. For them, I'm using W00, W1, and W3. So W3 is going to be my shadowed color. So I'm going in there on Mama and adding any shadows where I think that they should be, accenting her little feet and the back of her body, under her arms. And then I will come in with that W1 and start to soften that up, just coloring over the edge of the W3 and making it kind of soft and easy to blend. And I really am wanting to stick very close to the black outline because I want her to look like a white polar bear and not a gray bear. So I'm going to leave a lot of white space. Polar bears are one of my most favorite animals, so I'm really excited that I got a chance to use these little bears a couple times so far this year. I definitely made at least one fall card and one Christmas card with them already, and I just seem to keep gravitating toward them. I just love them so much. So I'm blending out that W1 with the W00 and letting that fade into the white areas. And then I'm going to take the colorless blender and just go over the edge of that W00 to just smooth out any transition lines. And then I'll do the little baby bear, and for him I'm going to add his shading just a little bit different because he's facing away from the camera and then he's got his head turned toward the right hand side. So I'm just trying to keep that in mind as I'm doing my shading and figure out kind of what the light source would be. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just something that looks a little bit natural. So I'm going to just do the same steps, starting with that W3, blending out with the W1, using the W00 as the highlight. And I wanted to give them a darker muzzle, so I'm going to keep that W3 and add in the W5 and W7. So I'm using the W7 to lay in a little shadow and then blending that out with the W5 and then using the W3. And I decided that I wanted to have just a little bit more of a highlight, so I pulled the W1 back out and finished with that. And that darker muzzle just gives them a little bit extra personality, makes them a little more unique. I'll use RV10 to give the mama and baby some rosy cheeks, just doing a little oval shape beneath the eye on the cheekbone. And then I'm moving on to my icebergs, and for those I'm using BG10 and BG11, just doing a little flick of color in from the outside edges with that BG11, and then pulling that out a little bit further with the BG10. I'm also going to add a little bit of color where those lines are drawn on top. They got a little bit away from me, so I'm going to come in with my colorless blender and just kind of clean up that line and help it fade into the white of the rest of the top of the iceberg. For the gingerbread, I'm going to use E23, E25, and E27. I really love this combo for gingerbread. I think it has a really pretty red undertone to it that just seems to match with that spicy feel. So I'm using the E27 to add some shadow from the bottom where the gumdrops are kind of casting a shadow, and also underneath the roof line where that icing that's dripping down would also be casting a shadow. And then I'll blend that out with the E25, so just bringing that towards the center. And then I'll come in with that E23 to fill in the rest of that space, just coloring carefully around that little window and the door. I'm going to end up coloring the door the same color as well. At first I wasn't sure if I wanted it to be different, so I just went around it, but then I ended up deciding that I did want it to be the same color. And while I was doing that, I also colored the chimney with those shades. So my idea for today's card actually came from an illustration that I came across on Pinterest a few years ago, and I just saved it because I always loved it because I love polar bears. But it features this polar bear sitting on an iceberg surrounded by gingerbread and other little Christmas goodies, and I just have always loved it, and I thought it would be so fun to try to create something similar but make it my own by making like a little family scene with the mama and baby, and they're having like a gingerbread tea party. So that's the concept for today's card. I'm going to use E00 to color in the other 3 cookies. For the 2 Christmas tree cookies, I'm only coloring in the outside edge because I want it to look like they have white frosting on top. And then I also did the little round cookie. I have a little round cookie that's one of my favorites. It's called Russian tea cakes, if anyone's familiar. I think they're also called snowballs. So I decided to make that cookie what that is. And now I'm moving on to my red combos. I'm using R24, R29, and R39 to color in Mama's mug. And that could have tea in it, or maybe they're having hot cocoa. That might fit to the scene a little bit better with the holiday theme. I wanted my gumdrops to be red and green, so I'm doing every other one with this red combo, just adding a tiny bit of darkness to the bottom right hand side, and then blending up about halfway with that R29, and then filling in with the R24. And I feel like that just gives them a nice glow. And then I'm also going to add some red little dots to the gingerbread cookies. I'm going to do one of the dots on their bodies red, and then the other one I'll do green. And then I'm also adding tiny little sprinkles to one of the Christmas tree cookies by just dotting on some of that R29. And then for my green combo, I'm going to use G14, G16, and G29. And I'm going to color in the little plate. I added that G29 to the left and right hand sides, and I'm blending towards the center of the rim with the G16. And then I'll fill in what's left of the rim plus the inner part of the plate with the G14. I'm also going to color the rest of the gumdrops with these shades. And the little wedges above the door that make up the window, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with those yet, so I had skipped them. I thought about doing it like in an orange, like a candied orange, but I decided that I just wanted to stick with the Christmassy color palette, so I'm going to end up going back and doing those with the red and the green as well. And I did the sprinkles on the other Christmas tree cookie with the G14 and G16. And I liked that two-tone look, so I ended up going back to the red Christmas cookie and adding a bit of the R24. And then now I'm just doing those little wedges. I decided that I would just keep things consistent rather than introducing a new color combo. So I did those with the red and greens that I already used. I also colored in the other little buttons on the gingerbread cookies with the G16. And then I'm going to trim these out with their coordinating dies. Now I've got a couple pieces of cardstock that I want to die cut a few elements for my background from. So I'm using some MFT snow cone cardstock to die cut the Lawn Fawn Stitch Mountain border. And then I have a piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to use the Stitched Simple Wavy borders to trim that one out. I'm also going to trim another one of those Stitched Simple Wavy borders from Lawn Fawn Mermaid cardstock. And I'm just using some Post-it tape to hold those dies in place, so when I run them through my die cutting machine, the line stays nice and straight. And then I've got one more piece of white cardstock that I used for the caps of the Stitch Mountain borders. So there you can see all of my elements, and I'm going to start building that onto a mermaid card base. So I just scored and folded that to a standard A2 size card with a top fold. So I have the mountains down first, and then I'm going to layer the white snowdrift over top of that. And then I'll take the mermaid piece and I'm going to figure out where I want to trim that down. I just left it long because I wasn't sure how high I wanted that to go just yet. I marked that off with a pencil, and then I'm going to use my paper trimmer to just cut that down to size. So before I adhere that though, I need to stamp my sentiment. I'm using Lawn Fawn's Peacock ink and the Snow Cool stamp set to stamp Stay Cool for the holidays. So I'm going to stamp that down a couple times to get a nice dark impression. And then I'm going to pop my card base in my MISTI so that I can finish off the inside of the card. And this time I'm stamping out a polar bear from Very Happy Holidays and a little trio of snowflakes and the sentiment from Very Happy Holidays as well. I've added some foam tape to the back of that bottom mermaid border. So I'm going to line that up with the bottom 3 edges of the card there and then pop that down into place. Then I'll bring in my mountain caps and I'm going to glue those on to the tops of the little mountains. So I'm just adding a bit of liquid glue and then I'm going to place the little caps right over top. So I'm just putting the bigger ones on the 2 tallest mountains, and then I've got a couple of the medium size that I'm adding to the ones in the one in the center and then the one on the far left. And then I have one of the small ones that I'm going to put on the other mountain in the center. I just removed some of that glue with my finger because it was just a little short one. And then I'll take that and trim off the little edge that was poking over the side. So now the stage is set for my little scene, and I'm going to begin by adding the mama bear. I'm going to have her sitting on the larger of the 2 icebergs. So I put her down as a placeholder and then I'm sliding that iceberg right underneath her. I wanted that front part of the iceberg to kind of accentuate the sentiment, the word cool there, so I put that right over top. And I'm adding one of the gingerbread cookies into her hands. I just put a dot of glue there and then tucked him down behind. There's an extra die that you can use to die cut her hands, so you don't have to do them if you don't want to, but it's always fun to add something into her hands so that she's holding it. And I added a little foam tape to the top half of her body and then liquid glue to the bottom half so that it could all be on the same level there. Next, I'm going to take the smaller iceberg and I'm going to add that over on the left-hand side. I want them to be pretty close. I don't want them to be drifting too far apart here, so I'm going to put that fairly close, but I also want there to be balance on the scene, so I did have it shifted just a bit over to the left. And then I have Baby Bear sitting on the far end of that so that the larger end can hold my little Christmas plate with its Christmas cookies. I'll put the gingerbread house next to Mama Bear, and then I'll take her little mug of cocoa and put that down in front of her so she can be dunking her cookie if she wants to. And then I'll take the little Christmas cookies that remain and I'm going to pile those up on the plate. So I'm just kind of staggering them in different directions since the gingerbread in Mama's hand was facing or tipped towards the right. I put the other one a little bit towards the left. And then I'm going to put the little tree cookies on either side of that. And then I've got the little Russian tea cake or whatever you want that one to be. I'll put that one down in front and kind of fill in that little gap. And then there is this little gingerbread mouse that also kind of looks like a gingerbread bear if you put it in the scene here. So I'm going to go ahead and pretend it's a gingerbread bear for this card here. And I just tucked that into the baby bear's paw because I would think that that would be the one he would choose. And then just fiddled with my cookies until I had them just the way that I wanted them. And it wouldn't be a Christy Gets Crafty Christmas card without some Stardust stickles, so I added that to the snow caps and also to the icing on the gingerbread house and the wedges and the gumdrops and all of the Christmas cookies and the buttons on the gingerbread men and Mama's cocoa. And afterwards, when I was taking the photos, I also realized that it needed to be on the snowdrift and on the edge of the icebergs as well. So when you see the final photos at the end, there will be stickles on there as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This was probably my favorite Christmas card that I've made so far this series. I just love polar bears, and I thought the scene was just super fun. This card is actually going to be on the Lawn Fawn blog today for part of the Fawny holiday week. So I'll have a link to that down below, as well as links to all of the products that I used today. I'm going to lift that up to the camera so you can see all of that sparkle and shine and give you guys a peek at the inside again. So if you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. I post new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and occasional bonus videos like this one. If you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos from previous years of holiday card series that I thought might also interest you. You can click on either one of those to check them out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have an absolutely amazing day. Bye-bye.